This is your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, March 5th, 2014. I'm Russ Belville. 420 Radio News is brought to you by the National Cannabis Coalition. Oregon legislators will not be referring a legalization proposal to the November ballot. Senate Bill 1556 does not have enough votes to pass the Senate. Senator Jeff Cruz, who helped to kill the bill, said, quote, "It's dead at this point and for good reason," end quote, preferring to wait and see how legalization in Washington and Colorado shakes out. This leaves the task of legalization up to Paul Stanford, whose group CRRH has already collected 35,000 signatures for a constitutional amendment to recognize the right to use marijuana, and 25,000 signatures for a statutory initiative to tax and regulate marijuana. And Anthony Johnson, whose group New Approach Oregon has the backing of several deep-pocket funders, is convinced they can place their legalization initiative on the ballot. Senator Rod Monroe is aware of the activist push for legalization, but believes, quote, "I'm not convinced it will automatically pass in this state," end quote. In other Oregon news, the House Rules Committee has approved a version of a dispensary regulation bill. In the Senate version of the bill, cities and localities were stripped of any power to ban newly legalized medical marijuana dispensaries, leaving them only the power to reasonably regulate time, manner, and place of business. House lawmakers sought to reinstate the power to outright ban dispensaries, but have now settled on a compromise, allowing cities and localities the power to enact a moratorium on medical marijuana dispensaries until May of 2015. The new bill allows dispensary owners who applied for a license to get their $4,000 fee refunded if their location runs afoul of a moratorium. The bill goes back to the House floor and, if passed, back to a joint committee to work out differences in the House and Senate versions. Washington State has issued its first recreational marijuana grower's license. Sean Green of Spokane is the chief executive of Couchlock Productions and has operated medical marijuana dispensaries in Spokane and Seattle. The State Liquor Control Board issued the license at its Wednesday meeting, granting Green the right to grow 21,000 square feet of marijuana. The board expects to license retail outlets later this spring with the goal of beginning legal recreational sales by July. There were over 2,200 applications for the 334 pot shops allowed under state law, leading officials to expect to conduct lotteries in some of the more populous areas to determine who gets the coveted licenses. Green expects to employ 30 to 50 people at his grow operation. He said, quote, "I'm coming home with jobs, Spokane," as he talked to the audience attending the meeting. Board Chairwoman Sharon Foster said, "We're proud of you. We now know there are folks out there who follow the rules and are willing to be participants of this brave new venture in Washington State." A Florida House panel has voted to legalize the high CBD, low THC form of medical marijuana that has shown such promise for children with epilepsy. The House Criminal Justice Committee voted 11-1 to allow patients to use the so-called Charlotte's Web oil. Bill sponsor Representative Matt Gaetz called it common sense and said, quote, "We're relying on an empowered consumer and an empowered physician," end quote. It is the first time any medical marijuana legislation has advanced in Florida, and the state will be voting on a much more comprehensive medical marijuana amendment in November. The lawmakers were moved by the case of Rayanne Mosley, an 11-year-old girl who has suffered debilitating seizures all of her life. When her parents, Peyton and Holly, visited Colorado and saw the remarkable recovery many epileptic children have experienced, they lobbied hard to get lawmakers to take up the issue. They explained, quote, "These kids can walk now, these kids can talk now, these kids are saying, 'I love you' to their parents for the first time," end quote. Woman loses longtime job over business venture related to pot. This one's from foxnews.com. Amy Dannemiller, who is also known as Jane West, had a concept for pairing marijuana with catered gourmet food. Dannemiller cultivated her Jane West image and alter ego in an effort to venture into the tenuous marijuana business. Those efforts had repercussions. After West, the name she's now going by, was featured in a national documentary at one of her underground Bring Your Own Marijuana events at a Denver art gallery, she was fired from her day job at a still unnamed national corporation for being seen inhaling. This has been your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, March 5th, 2014. I'm Russ Belville. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available exclusively at the National Cannabis Coalition. Visit ncc420.com to download today. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be back with Behind the Headlines right after this.